Look, I happen to be, a very strong proponent of Medicare for all. And Cenk, I have to believe that in this moment, when tens of millions of workers who have lost their jobs have also lost their health care, because in this country, health care is considered an employee benefit. What is simply true is the vast majority of the American people now understand that health care is a human right and not just an employee benefit. And we're going to push Biden as far as we can. So what does that mean? What is it? How does it end up? Well, I don't know. I'm not on the task force. But what it may mean is lowering the eligibility age for Medicare from 65 down to 55. I hope it means that. It may mean that covering all children in this country. It may mean taking on the greed and corruption of the pharmaceutical industry so that we substantially lower prescription drug prices in this country and not pay the highest prices in the world. We got to work on that issue. It may mean greatly expanding community health centers all over this country and making sure we have doctors and nurses practicing in underserved areas in rural America and in urban areas. So, look, their views are not my views. That's a fact. But the goal of these task forces, whether it is the Green New Deal, Medicare for all, eliminating student debt, all of the things that I campaigned on, is to move them as far as we possibly can. My hope is that not only will we be successful in moving the Biden campaign in a more progressive area, not just on healthcare, not just on the economy, not just on climate change, but on education, immigration, reform, other areas, but that Biden will understand that it is important for him to have progressives in his cabinet as well. Because you know and I know that you can have all of the position papers that you want, all of the ideology out there that you want, but at the end of the day, you're going to need strong progressives to implement those policies. And if you don't have those progressives in the cabinet, they're probably not, these policy changes will probably not take place.
I'll throw a wild card at you here. You mentioned the cabinet. I hadn't planned on asking any questions about that, but if you had 1 to 3 people in your ideal world to put into Joe Biden's cabinet, who would they be?
I'm not. If I say that, then 4, 5, and 6 will get upset at me. But I would simply say, look, okay. There are great people. You know them. I'm sure that many of them have been on the Young Turks. These are people who have fought for working class Americans. These are people who have been prepared to deal with income and wealth inequality and take on powerful special interest. People who understand that climate change is an existential threat. People who have been fighting for years for criminal justice reform, for immigration reform. You know the names. And but It is important that, in my view, Biden selects some of the leading progressives in this country in his cabinet.
Okay, so we were talking about the task force. One more question about that. Some progressives are worried that we're getting played. We put people on a task force. It looks nice before the election. Try to get progressives to vote for Joe Biden. The election's over. The establishment comes back in and goes, we were just kidding. We're not going to do any of that. So how do you talk to those folks, assuage them? Is there a thing that you could say that would get them to believe it? Is there a thing that Joe Biden could do to get them to believe that it's real?
Well, first of all, I will tell you as somebody who, has talked to Biden about the task forces, you know the names of the people who are on it. These are some of the leading progressives in America. What Biden did not say, nor did his campaign staff say, oh, sorry, this person is too radical, this person is too progressive, we don't want him on the task force. That was not the case. So to answer your question, Cenk, if you're in Biden's position, if you're a staff member, then you're going to have to, you weren't sincere in these efforts, then when these compromised task force reports come out, what are you going to say? Joe Biden will say, well, I had this task force on healthcare and on climate change and on education, immigration reform, but you know what? I really don't accept the conclusions, the compromised conclusions that were reached. I don't know that you could do that. You look pretty silly. So I think what he understands is not complicated. He's a very good politician. He understands that he needs, if he's going to beat Trump, he needs to grow the voter turnout. He needs to speak to young people in this country who are not enamored with him at this point, needs to speak to the progressive community, needs to speak to sections of the working class community. And through these task forces and the adopting of strong positions, he will be saying, not only do I hear you through your representatives on these task forces, these are the policies I'm going to campaign on. And if elected president, these are the policies I'm going to put into place and fight for.